But we've been talking about bowl games today, talking about Indiana football, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that Curt Cignetti is not going to be satisfied next season going 6-6.
No.
That is not his bar.
No, I don't think he's the type of guy that comes in and says, here's our objective. It's to get to 6 wins to get to a bowl game. That's not his objective. His objective is to be in the Big Ten playoff, and anything short of that's going to be a disappointment for him. But, that's what a guy that's won at every place objective becomes, is that if you're, what's that, another Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last mentality. But no, I think he's a guy that, a lot of kids are going to find out a lot about it when they come back here in January, because they're going to go to that first meeting and he's going to tell them, you're going to get evaluated every day in every single way, from the weight room, academics, to everything that you do. When the eyes are on you by the coaches, when the eyes aren't on you, like in the weight room and the staff coaches have got you. And he's going to find out who's in the boat with him and who's kind of that half guy in the boat, maybe half out type of guy. And that guy's going to find out real quick that if you're not all in, son, hit the portal, because he's not going to mess around. I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough winter for the returning guys that are coming back, because they're going to go through a lot of, different expectations. A lot of these James Madison guys that he brought in, I'm sure, even though they're probably their top guys at James Madison, they're going to be there to kind of, hey guys, he don't mess around. This is
bridge the gap. They are there to bridge the gap in a myriad of ways.
Right. And they're good players. Don't get me wrong. And I think that's going to be the biggest objective for those kids that are coming in. Can they be Big Ten football players? Because I know that's a lot of questions out there right now about bringing in the number of kids he has brought in from James Madison. Is the overall question, well, yeah, they were really good Sun Belt players, but are they really good Big Ten players? And I would say you defer to Coach Cignetti's eye for talent and expectations of what the Big Ten is. And he feels those kids are Big Ten players that he stole and got at James Madison. So I know they're bringing in that one big tackle, who I think is like 6'4", 5, and 300 plus pounds. So they've got a few cats that I think are going to be pretty impressive looking kids when they walk in the building. Kind of the first off the bus guys that you want to that you want the opposing team to see, like, holy crap, do you see that cat? But when they get back, that's their mindset right now, is setting the standard, what is to be expected from here through the end of spring ball.
Yeah. And not only that, it gives him a group of guys that he knows, that he trusts, that he knows, understands his system. And like you said, they are going to be mentors to all of these other guys, and saying, hey, here's how it's going to be, guys. And this is the way it's going to be. But also it's that comfortability of having a group of players that he has worked with, that he has had success with. So, right. And what he has brought in, which has been a good mix of portal talent. He's gotten the running back from Indiana to stay. He got Donovan McCulley, which was the biggest get of all. Right. So now you've got a top recruit. That's a recruit that virtually anybody would have taken in the country. And so Indiana has that. Then you've added some pieces at the wide receiver spot from Texas Tech and Wake Forest. You've added some running backs as well. Your quarterbacks room is set because you've got a veteran guy, a kid from Rourke from Ohio, and then you have got guys behind him that we had Alberto Mendoza on last week, and
yes,
this kid has a quarterback's mentality. He talks, thinks, acts, walks, drinks, eats like a quarterback, and already. And to me, that's really impressive when you're in high school and you're talking language that is probably a year or two ahead of you. But that's what happens when you get a quarterback of that stature. This kid plays in Miami, man. He doesn't play against these tiddlywinks kids. He's a two-time state champion. You don't win a state title in Florida without talent, without resolve, and his brother. On top of that, he followed his brother at Columbus High School there. He's Cal as a redshirt freshman, started the last 7 games, I think, for them, beat UCLA in the Rose Bowl. I believe beat Oklahoma or Oregon State and Washington State, all teams that were ranked. And so he's got a pedigree in addition to having success behind him. So, man, I know you've got Tyler Cherry coming in, which is maybe even higher ranked, but buddy, Taven Jackson is probably thinking, hey, what about me? But his former teammate, Tyler Cherry, I think is going to end up in the quarterback battle with Alberto Mendoza for that number 2 spot next year.
Well, yeah, that quarterback room's ultra competitive, and that's what you need in that room, because you definitely got to have more than one, especially in the Big Ten. And depending on how they utilize that group, now Rourke is a drop back guy. Now he can run it, but he's more of and so is probably Mendoza, more of a true drop back guy. Now I'm not saying these guys are not mobile, because that's the one thing when you look at a quarterback outside of accuracy and arm strength is you look for mobility. But the quarterback room is going to be ultra competitive. And you got Taven and Brock Lowry, both there, that are going to have to compete all over again. Everybody's going to come in on the same keel. Now, the one thing that hurts Berto is that he's not an early enrollee like Tyler Cherry is. So he'll be behind the 8 ball a little bit. But you're right about his, I would call it his confidence is conducive to that position. He's very confident in his abilities to lead a team, and he's got the proven background of winning the state championship in the state of Florida twice at a school that has been known to put out big time recruits, and that conference that they play in down there is no slouch either. So it's a very talent rich conference with players at every position, and it'll be interesting on how he fits into Coach Cignetti's offense, how he integrates into the quarterback room with Tino. I really think when Coach Cignetti took the job and he knew the coaches that he was bringing along, he probably said, tell me which players at your position you want to bring with you. And everybody from Shanahan and Tino had a thought process in that. And then Brian Haynes and Pat Coons, who both were familiar with Indiana and the talent that Indiana had, especially during Kevin Wilson's era, who had some really good talented players come in there. And, they got to bowl games and stuff like that. But, that was an ultra competitive years in the latter part of his tenure there, and how they played teams. But they had an idea of those players that they brought and how they would integrate into what was there already in some respects. So I think they brought what they think are their best players and top players that can help lead and be a bridge, like you said there, Jim, and will provide a lot of continuity into what the expectations are heading into this off season and then into spring ball.
Yeah, you got a guy like Pat Kuntz as well, you just mentioned, who has Indiana roots, born in Indianapolis, played at Notre Dame. He was a defensive lineman. He's coaching the D-line. And that is just a bunch of positive things going on right there for Indiana.
Yeah, and, you know, I mentioned Bryant, who was at Ball State, was a premier linebacker in the Mid-American Conference. He grew up and played in Ohio, which we all know about Ohio football. So those guys, both him and Pat, have that Midwest background and understand the Big Ten, what it's going to take in the Big Ten. And I think those are going to be big helps to him as well. And that's the one thing I like about his staff. They're pretty much a young staff when you look at the number of years they've got in the coaching arena, especially at the D1 level. And those guys, you know, they have a relatability to the players that are already there. And I think they will relate well with the Indiana players. And I think those guys will also be a huge factor in bringing the Indiana guys along with the James Madison guys to create a team that will ultimately carry that mentality that Cignetti is going to want from them, that the eras of mediocrity or complacency is over. You know, we're not here to be mediocrity in anything. And I will fight you every single day on complacency, whether it's academics, whether it's the weight room, whether it's what we expect during winter workouts or spring ball. There is no more complacency.
No, that has been something that Curt Cignetti, one of the first things he said, and I've repeated this a couple times. You know, Tom Allen was famous for having his word of the year and whenever they would do that. That is gone. But if there was one, it would be complacency. That is Curt Cignetti, but he doesn't have to say it. He says it once, and then they just live it from there out. You know, and I mentioned Pat Kuntz as we talked about him. This is a guy who played for Indianapolis Roncalli High School. Right. Like I said, played at Notre Dame, but he can help recruit Indiana kids, and that is a place where Indiana has really, really lacked, because if they're good, if they're really talented, they're going to go to Notre Dame like Pat did, or Ohio State or Michigan.
Right.
But Indiana has to turn the tide before I think the recruiting tide turns, but they can do that in a single season.
Yeah. Pat's going to be very influential in that Indianapolis area. For the talent, you know, that is there in Indianapolis, that he will provide a bridge from there to Bloomington. Fort Wayne is becoming, up here in my neck of the woods, is becoming a very big area for recruiting, and especially in the Big Ten over the last few years.
Especially the big boys.
Yeah. Well, you got the Mylan Graham kid out of here at New Haven, who's most recently a 5-star rating, and he's going to Ohio State. Now, I don't know if he's a 5-star. That may be because he went to Ohio State, but he's a very talented kid, again, coming out of the Fort Wayne area. And if they can pull some kids out of here, there's another big-time kid up here, Brock Schott out of Leo, that I think will really relate well to a Bryant Haynes and a Pat Kuntz to try to get him, and he's got offers from about everybody. So there's no question those guys are going to help him in the state of Indiana, as well as in that Ohio area as well.